Hello and welcome to another episode of Garden to Table with Rose, and I am Rose. So today I am back with part 2 of my setup unboxing of the Rise Family 3-tier garden that I recently purchased. So here we are. The lighting isn't that great because I'm inside and it's overcast out, there's no sun, but here you can see the garden is all set up here in this little corner in my living room, and I will say it took me, let's try and get a fuller, there we go. So there's the whole thing, you can see it. It's about maybe 6 feet tall, I would say. It's a little bit taller than me, and I'm 5'7". So it fit nicely in this little corner. It makes a babbling brook kind of sound, like a fountain. So for me, that's relaxing. I like fountains, so it didn't bother me. But if that noise bothers you, you may want to have it in a room where you're not there for hours on end having to listen to it. But I put mine here, and so far so good. Let me tell you, it took about 2 hours to put it together. I thought it would take a lot longer because there were 2 books, spiral bound books of instructions. So, but yeah, it went together pretty easily. The only tip I have for putting it together is don't tighten the screws all the way, as the book says, because these shelves all have like little keyholes where you kind of fit it over the head of the screw and then you tighten it. So if you tighten them all the way, you'll be taking them back apart to get the shelves onto the frame. But yeah, so 2 hours, and then I immediately, maybe that day or the next day, planted up some of the pods. I use some of theirs that they sent with the system, and then some of my own. And you can see the unboxing and everything that came with the system in part 1 of this, the unboxing and setup of the Rise Garden. So yeah, so it's been about 10 days according to the app since I planted my first seedlings, and some of them I've transferred already to the garden. So they give you these little white, I think they're 4 pods that you can fit in there. I'm going to call these K-cups. They remind me of K-cups. 4 little K-cup pods that you can sit in there, and it's nice because they fit right on the edges. And I did use a couple of those for some of the seedlings, but really what was easier for me, because I do garden already, was I went and just got one of my standard size gardening trays with its humidity dome, and I used some little disposable 6-plug plastic trays in there just to keep those K-cups from tipping over, because they will. And then I put a heat mat under mine because I live in Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Zone 6A. So it's pretty cool here right now. And also my house is usually about between 68 and 70 degrees. So some of the plants like it a little bit warmer than that to germinate, in the mid 70s maybe for like peppers and tomatoes. But there's a heat mat under there. So that just kind of fit nicely here now because I don't have anything planted in those holes. But once I have, more things planted, I wouldn't need a big tray to start seedlings. I would only need to be starting, maybe 2 or 3 at a time. So the little white trays are really, really good. I think they come in handy. So also there's an app. Oh, can't see that. But I have the app here installed on my phone. And I like the concept of an app. I like things that are fairly automated, or that gives you reminders and stuff, or you can keep track of what you plant when. The only thing I don't like about this app is that it seems like once you get on the course, once you've set up a grow, you can't so much edit the time of things, the counters or whatever. You can't go back or reset unless you start your whole nursery or garden settings over again. And the reason why that's an issue is because I clicked through the first feeding schedule. I actually just saw it on the app and thought it was maybe a tutorial, and it ended up being steps that I was supposed to be following. So then it gave me a check mark as if I had fed the plants, which I had not, and so I could not reset that. I couldn't unmark it or whatever to start it over unless I started the whole cycle over, it seems. So I don't like that. So the app could use some work, but it's generally good for me keeping track of things, which I like because I have used a lot of my own plugs in here, so there's no little label on the top like it is with the plugs you get from Rise. So as you can see, looking at this, there are 3 levels, right? These top 2 are pretty narrow, I guess, or not very tall. I don't know, maybe a foot tall. I don't know. You can look at the manual or the website for the exact measurements. But so these 2 are not the tallest, and so then the app will advise you not to put certain things there if you try to plant it in one of these holes. And it's a pepper, for example, or Swiss chard. It'll pop up and say, you know, this isn't advised to plant it on this level. You want to plant it on the level that has more room at the bottom, which looks to be, to me, almost twice as big as the other 2 levels. So I'm not sure of the exact amount, but it looks to be close to 2 feet. So all your tall things need to go at the bottom. And then also, depending on what you're planting, how bushy it is, you may want to only use two pods diagonally instead of filling all 4 in each section. So then you're only able to grow 6 plants down at the bottom, but depends on what you're growing. So this is how the whole system looks. It's very attractive. It blends in. It looks like a bookshelf, you know, kind of like a piece of furniture. The lights are on some kind of timer where I think they stay on for 18 hours and off for 6 hours, or on for 16 hours, off for 8 hours. I'm not sure. But they seem to be always on. So I got to get that coordinated with when I would like them to be off in here, because this is my living room and this is where I watch TV. So I don't necessarily want them on during the time that I'm in this room, which is not a lot of hours a day, but still. So that's what's going on there. The covers, they don't give you the same amount as there are holes, which is unfortunate because, you know, when you first start this thing, there's nothing in it. And after you set it up, you have water in it. So it would be nice to have enough of these to fill every hole in the system. So I may be buying more of those. I did try, I bought these because, as I said before, it is pretty expensive to buy their pods, and so I don't plan to really do that. I plan to use my own seeds because I do have a garden. I garden every year outside, so I plan to use my own seeds, my own grow mediums, which I just use starter seed plugs. There's a bunch of brands that, you know, that make them, and they're just the right size for the most part to fit into these little K-cups. So I did get these, which are just generic hydroponic plant covers off of Amazon, and I saw somebody on YouTube with these who had one of these gardens to cover the tops. See that? Because I'm not going to continue to buy their expensive plugs. So I got these, and I'm going to see how those work. And then the other method I'm trying for covering my own plugs is aluminum foil. So you want the tops covered to prevent algae, or at least inhibit it, from what I've read. And so their pods come already wrapped in foil at the top, and then you poke a little hole in the center, but it has a nice sticker that has the name of the plant. Like this one is iceberg lettuce. So given that I'm getting my own plugs, they don't have covers, so I'm experimenting. So I got those hydroponic little covers, and then you can see in here these new seedlings I have planted, which are probably tomatoes and peppers. I've just cut little pieces of tin foil and wrapped it around the top of my little plug and poked a hole in the center and then put my seeds in the hole. So we'll see how each one works. For my own plugs, what I did, because I have this little label maker that I use for everything in the kitchen, really. I printed out, let's see if you can see that, that's marjoram. I printed out these little sticky labels on my little label maker and stuck them to the K-cup, and I can lift it up if I don't know what it is or need to remind myself. So that's what I'm doing there. Several things have now been transplanted into the garden here on day 10. I didn't really wait necessarily till they get a second set of leaves. I just waited until the seeds sprouted, because typically when I do my seedlings, once they actually sprout, I start a light feeding. And I wasn't going to try to do that while they were under the little dome, because not all of them had sprouted. So I fed the water system here just this morning for the first time. And some of the seedlings just have their first set of leaves, but they've sprouted. And usually the seed, you know, it has just enough energy to sprout, and then after that it needs something extra. And given that there's no soil or anything, I did move them in a little bit earlier, and they seem to be doing fine, because like the lettuces and the kale and spinach have been in here for about 3 days and they've gotten bigger already. You can see my little lettuce. All right, so let's see what else. Oh, I also put a fan here. I would recommend a fan. You may not need it if you live in a place that gets cold. You may not need it necessarily during the winter months, but once it gets warm, if you're still using it, summer, late spring, early fall, you probably want the air to circulate to keep from getting bugs and diseases and all that kind of stuff that comes with gardening indoors. So the little cabinet here at the bottom has a big black tray, which is nice to prevent spills. It has this water bucket. I put down here all the minerals they gave me, which is pH down, something called Thrive, and something else called Sprout. And the app will tell you when to add those and how much. It does mention something about tick marks, using tick marks on the side of the bottle to measure it. There's no tick marks on any of my bottles, so I don't know if they changed their bottle recently. But there's no tick marks, so I just eyeball it. That's how I usually fertilize all my seedlings. I just eyeball it. I do it half what I think I would be giving a full grown plant. So for seedlings, you don't need it to be as strong, and then I just add it there. I don't really worry too much about the pH of my water, and I know the pH is a bit high. I just found that if I use the pH balanced water or not, the things I've typically grown inside have still done what they're supposed to do. But then I've only grown things that were seedlings meant to go outside, so I don't know with these, given that I'm growing the full grown plant indoors, I may have to revisit that. But right now I'm using it as they say, because they just say put 2 squirts in. It's no exact measurement, but I don't know that I will keep using pH down once those run out. And then I got all my little extra supplies here. I got a squirt bottle with just water. That's pretty good for seedlings, because seedlings, they only need to stay moist, the seed, until it sprouts. You don't really need to be putting a bunch of water in there. It'll just breed, you know, bacteria and mold and stuff. So I just squirt the tops of my seedlings until they sprout. But all my little extra supplies is here. My sensor is working, the water sensor. I know some people online were complaining about their water level sensor not working. It kept resetting itself the first, few days, but now it seems to be consistently working. And then this light, which is nice, you can turn down the light 1 notch, I guess, if it's bothering you, but still you want something, or you can turn it completely off. So I don't have anything else to report. I've had to fill it up in these 10 days once. I added a pitcher. They give you the Rise pitcher to add to fill the water tank. So I think I added one pitcher full of water when I did the feeding today, which was the first time I did that. And that is it. So I may come back and just do an update and see how things fared after we get some growth here on these plants. But in my plugs, I've used some of their herbs and their lettuce. My plan is to grow leafy greens, a lot of that, herbs, a lot of herbs, and then a little bit of maybe a couple of tomato plants, peppers, particularly hot peppers, because I really like those, and they're pretty expensive here at the grocery store, at least fresh they are. And so a couple of peppers, and I may even have a couple of smaller size squash in there, like summer squash. So we will see what happens with this. If you want any more information, go to the website, risegardens.com. And again, I just recently, a couple of weeks ago, purchased this Rise Garden 3-tier family garden system to do hydroponic vegetables throughout the winter, since I live in a place where we have 4 seasons, so it's not possible to grow here outside. So we'll see how it goes, and that is all I have for today. So join me next time for another episode of Garden Stable with Rose. Take care. Bye bye.